Behind one of the doors in this quiet suburban apartment complex was a corpse, bleeding from 2 bullet holes.
He's on his back. In his right hand, he's clutching a pair of scissors.
8 hours had elapsed since a murderer stepped into the apartment and executed the man inside.
There's a Coke can, and sprinkled on top of the Coke can was a white powder.
But nothing at this crime scene could be taken at face value.
Later on, he admitted maybe it wasn't an accident. He was trying to kill me with those scissors, so I had to shoot.
Hi, I'm Nancy O'Dell. Today's crime expose takes us to Atlanta, Georgia. In the southern heat, just like thermometers, tempers can flare up. On a quiet spring day, an unassuming husband and father was shot to death in his home. The crime scene indicated an argument over a cocaine buy, but the police would eventually discover the murder was motivated by something totally different. The victim, James Chao, a talented programmer at IBM, had relocated from Houston, Texas, and was waiting for his wife and son to join him in Atlanta. In the meantime, he rented a small apartment for himself. All was well until the day that this reliable employee didn't come to work.
When he didn't show up for an important meeting, his coworkers were immediately worried. They called, they tried to get in touch with him, no answer. They waited for a while to see if he would show up. He did not. And so after the meeting, 2 of his coworkers decided they were going to drive to James' apartment and make sure he was okay.
A security guard unlocked the door to the apartment, revealing the stiffening corpse of James Chao crumpled on the floor.
They immediately started screaming for help. The next door neighbor called 911. The dispatcher and the 911 tape shows that there was a lot of yelling and screaming going on in the background. Detective Eddie Herman of the Cobb County Police Department was the first detective on the scene.
I got down there, the area had been taped off crime scene tape, and I met with uniform officers on the scene to discuss exactly what they saw, what they had when they got there.
The ground floor apartment had only one door to the outside.
As you open that door, the victim's feet were right at the doorway, near a table that was off the kitchen area. There was a couple of chairs pulled back, the lights were on.
He secured the scene and began looking around, and immediately he noticed what appeared to be gunshot wounds to James' head and chest.
He was bleeding from the head area. We could see that he had suffered a gunshot wound to the chest, and he had also suffered a gunshot wound to the right side of the head behind the right ear.
After killing his target, the murderer had rifled through the furniture and abandoned some curious objects in plain sight.
There were several drawers that had been pulled out. It had the appearance that maybe it had been ransacked, not to a usual degree.
On a table they found cocaine, some drug paraphernalia.
We had a drink can with what appeared to be powder cocaine sprinkled on the top of it. A small open pack of powder cocaine on the table.
And in his right hand they found a pair of scissors. They didn't appear to have blood on them or to have been used in a fight from that perspective.
So given the items on the table, it appears this is a drug deal gone bad, but not so fast, huh?
I mean, James' history, his personal history, his work history just didn't lend itself to a drug dealer or even an addict. The way the body was found, it appeared that he didn't really put up much of a fight. Certainly there weren't any defensive wounds or anything like that.
Nor did it look like a burglary.
The door had been locked. There was no sign of a break-in.
It made sense to me that whoever came to James Chao's apartment, he let in. So he either knew him or there was some kind of prearranged meeting set up and he allowed him inside the apartment.
As the investigation got underway, the police had to finesse a delicate issue: what to tell Chao's coworkers.
I never got any pushback from IBM, being that it was a big company. In fact, they were very cooperative with us. I do remember James Chao's supervisor asking me how he should tell the coworkers, and I said, well, just tell them we found him shot. It's going to get out, so just be honest. This is what we're dealing with.
Meanwhile, detectives scrutinized the confusing crime scene with its blood, bullets, cocaine, and scissors. Why did someone kill James Chao?
The suspect in this case was not a criminal. He had not thought through that very well.
Shot in the skull and chest, James Chao was dead when he hit the ground. His apartment contained a scattershot group of clues that didn't add up to anything. At least, not yet. One sure fact: the mild-mannered software engineer didn't seem the type to be negotiating drug deals from his home.
James Chao is a rising star in IBM. He was recruited from an office in Texas to come to Atlanta to be a part of the programming team on a big project. And he had planned to bring his family afterwards, but he went ahead and got an apartment here and started work.
James and Lisa Chao were parents to an 8-year-old boy, and they appeared to live a good life. According to one friend,
he said that he didn't know anything other than James being an upstanding citizen.
it was possible that James Chao had no major secrets, no dark corners in his life, but something had turned him into a target. The police pushed forward with their investigation.
Well, over a course of several months, they talked to everybody involved with both families. They talked to co-workers both here in Atlanta and in Texas, where he had worked before.
The spouse is an automatic suspect in this type of case. Coincidentally, around the time that James Chao drew his last breath, his wife was on a flight from Houston to visit him in Atlanta.
His wife, Lisa Chao, was scheduled to come into town to meet him, and they were supposed to go house hunting because when the 8-year-old son's school finished, they were going to move up and join him here in Atlanta.
So what happened when Lisa Chao arrived in Atlanta?
She gets to the airport, had talked to him the evening before. He was supposed to pick her up. When he didn't pick her up, she called his office, and that's when they sent the co-worker out to the apartment. In addition to the fact that James Chao had not shown up at the office that morning before going to the airport.
So far, every lead in this case began and ended in James Chao's apartment, but an explanation for his murder was still out of reach.
We ran out any possibility. The drug angle was never anything we got a hold on. It didn't look right. He interrupted a burglary. They wouldn't have been sitting down at that table. Felt comfortable that it was somebody that he knew, that he let in.
Was the killer a friend? A family member? Nothing in this case was connecting until investigators checked out James Chao's workplace and another suspect entered the playing field.
Did a little digging, went to his office at IBM. We found some letters.
Chao had a pen pal named Lena Lee, and though Chao stored their correspondence in his office, her letters and cards had nothing to do with business.
They weren't your typical friendship letters. Obviously, something was going on between the two.
The police circled back to Lisa Chao, the wife of James. Was she aware of her husband's penchant for writing love letters?
Lisa Chao, she admitted that there had been some allegations that her husband had been having an affair with Lena Lee, and he denied it.
Lena Lee was the ex-wife of a man named Chien Lee, who was not happy that his former spouse was having a fling with James Chao. In fact, Chien Lee dialed up Lisa Chao and gave her an earful.
She got a phone call from Chien Lee. It was threatening in nature about her taking care of her husband.
Adding fuel to the fire, Chien Lee was a co-worker and a friend of James Chao.
Their families were close. They had a relationship outside of work. In fact, they considered each other best friends.
But the harmony between the two couples disintegrated as forbidden attraction blossomed into a full-blown affair.
There was an undercurrent of hostility despite the public showing of friendliness and happiness.
It was possible that Chien Lee shot James Chao over the affair, but there was only one problem with that scenario. Lee lived in Houston, Texas, and Chao had recently moved from Houston to Atlanta. So did Lee travel 800 miles to kill his friend?
I mean, it was a long shot, but it's what we had working at the time. We had to run it out.
Did you team up with the Texas Rangers who spoke to Chien Lee for you?
We didn't want to make a trip down there if we didn't have anything to hang our hat on.
Did Lee say he was stuck in Houston and hadn't traveled anywhere recently?
Chien Lee had said he was out of work, he was sick, he was here at his apartment by himself.
The murder weapon was a .380 caliber Browning handgun. Curious, the Texas Rangers asked Lee if he owned a firearm.
Chien Lee told him, yes, I've owned a .380 automatic. I pawned it the day before yesterday.
Ballistics testing would establish whether this pistol fired 2 rounds into James Chao. Even so, it would take hours of interviewing and a well-played hunch for the police to smoke out the killer.
You had to cut through some walls, so to speak, to get to the truth.
Two couples, an affair that ripped their friendship apart. Did one of these people murder James Chao in the middle of the night? Lisa Chao discovered that her husband was keeping company with his friend's wife. So was she angry enough to pull the trigger and kill her husband?
She was very upset, but she had no information. She said she had talked to him the night before and everything seemed to be okay. She didn't know anything about anybody coming to see him, and said not only did he not do drugs, but he very seldom even drank alcohol. So it was kind of a nondescript interview with the wife.
Lisa Chao had indeed traveled from Houston to Atlanta, but her purpose was to go house hunting with her husband, not to kill him.
It was explained that she was coming to look for a place and hopefully to be able to reconcile James and move their family here and essentially move on.
Meanwhile, Chien Lee was having a hard time explaining why he was out of the office right around the time that a phantom killer executed his buddy, James Chao.
Chien Lee owned a pistol that matched, or was similar at least, to the pistol that we had that may have fired the fatal rounds.
When presented with this information, Lee was tight-lipped.
He denied any involvement. Chien Lee would not admit having anything to do with Chao's death.
Investigators pressed on with their interview, hoping that something would pop. Then, Detective Eddie Herman had an idea.
At about 2.5 hours in, I just rolled the dice with him. I said, hey, you know, this is an IBM engineer working on a NASA project in Houston. And so I figured he probably had some information about science and those kind of things.
Detective Herman figured that an intelligent man like Chien Lee would be familiar with the concept of ballistics testing.
So I said, it's going to be real easy to figure this out because we've got the pistol you pawned. It's the same caliber as one that may have fired the projectiles. It's going to be real easy to match.
And then the bombshell that blew the case wide open.
And he looked at me, I'll never forget it, his shoulders shrugged, he looked at me and says, you mean to tell me that you can match one gun with one bullet? And I said, yes. And he had that look of surrender when he found that out.
Chien Lee had no idea that identifying marks called striations are etched into a bullet as it travels through the barrel of a gun.
I was really baffled that he didn't know that at the time. And I told him, I said, it's called ballistics. And at this point he broke down.
He said, yeah, it was an accident. I went there to confront him. I wanted to have it out with him, and my gun went off by accident.
Lee proceeded to tap dance around the truth, but he failed to convince the police that he was innocent.
Later on, he admitted, well, maybe it wasn't an accident. He was trying to kill me with those scissors, so I had to shoot him. But after a while, he stopped denying that he had been involved in the crime.
Backed into a corner, Lee threw in the towel and revealed what really happened in James Chao's apartment. A showdown over Chao's love affair with Lee's ex-wife.
He told us that he just went over there to talk to her. Knocked on the door. It's like we thought. Chao knew who it was. He let him in. Chao asked him, "What are you doing here?" And they got to talking about Lena. According to Cece, Chao was kind of demeaning to him, questioning whether or not he could take care of his wife.
The humiliation was too much. Furious at his so-called friend, Cece Lee lost control.
Cece said that he pulled a gun out, he shot him 2 times. He told us it was self-defense, but I quickly pointed out it was an execution. I mean, he had put the pistol right at Chao's head with the head wound, so there was no accident. There was no self-defense.
Everything the police observed in the apartment, scattered cocaine, off-kilter furniture, scissors clutched in the victim's hand, was Lee's clumsy attempt at misdirection. Fresh out of lies, he was arrested and charged with the murder of James Chao.
The fact that there was obviously a staged crime scene, that James had no connection that they ever were able to establish with any kind of drug use or drug sales, and that the fact that it was not a break-in, it's not some sort of random crime, and the fact that Mr. Lee admitted it. It took the jury a while, but they came back with a guilty verdict, and Lee was sentenced to life in prison.
Life can turn on a dime, and angry decisions sometimes produce terrible results.
I think if James Chao had it to do over again, he never would have let Cece Lee in his apartment that night. The first thing I would have said is, what the heck are you doing here? I mean, you're 800-900 miles away from home and you're showing up here late at night. So don't open the door, right?
This was a crime of passion, staged to look like a crime of theft, of drugs, of anything other than what actually happened.
To this day, when I think about that case, I'm thinking to myself, this is a guy, highly educated, working on the NASA project for IBM, that went out of his way to set up this elaborate crime scene to make it look like it's something it wasn't.
It was absolutely a crime of passion. Passion started it, jealousy triggered it, and the frustration ended it.
Unhappiness and jealousy eventually tore 2 families apart. James Chao's son grew up without his father, and Cece Lee's children had to visit their father in prison. And now it is time for today's Safety Spotlight. Crimes of passion often stem from complex emotions such as jealousy and anger, which can escalate into violence. If you have a contentious relationship, try to avoid meeting the person alone. Instead, meet in a public location such as a mall, park, or restaurant. Bring a trusted friend, colleague, or family member. If the person becomes hostile or threatening, prioritize your safety by leaving the situation quickly and contacting law enforcement for assistance. Remember, it is always better to be safe than sorry. For all of us here at Crime Exposé, please join us next time and stay safe.